Hey everybody, Dr. Alex here from PracticeDomination.com, and welcome to another episode of 60-Second Studies. This study is called Energy Intake and Exercise as Determinants of Brain Health and Vulnerability to Injury and Disease. It goes into a whole bunch of studies. It's a review, and it talks about how essentially you can starve yourself and exercise yourself to better brain function. Now, the way it works historically, we used to be a hunter-gatherer society. We'd go out in the morning, we'd go hunting, we'd go gathering. And the people who did the best and whose minds were sharpest during that time, when they didn't eat anything in the morning, just went out and hunted. Of course, those are the people who survived, natural selection, right? And it also reinforced those people who had good brain function on an empty stomach. And of course, that got better and better and better over time. And today we can prove through different studies and chemically, even in other animals like primates and rodents, that exercise and slight energy restriction results in the release of many important chemicals for brain function, synapse strengthening, and neurogenesis in the hippocampus. And I'll get into it. That's the essential parts of the article. Let's get into some specifics. So most people these days are unnaturally overfed and sedentary, in a state of chronic positive energy balance. And that's due to increased transportation technology, agriculture, food production and processing, and all that does with high fructose corn syrup also, because that turns directly into triglycerides, makes us all fat. And most of us sit for way too long. Average American, 13 hours a day of sitting. By the time you're 30, you've been sitting for 100,000 hours. Plus, this chronic overfeeding leads to all sorts of not only metabolic disorders, metabolic syndrome, and obesity, diabetes, but also cognitive decline later in life. And Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is linked to this type of situation as well. And this article shows that energy restriction plus exercise can decrease the chance of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which is fantastic. That goes into it a little bit later. Here's one, for example. Controlled daily caloric restriction, alternate day caloric restriction, and 2 days of caloric restriction each week result in reduced abdominal fat mass, increased insulin sensitivity, and reduced amounts of oxidatively damaged molecules, pro-inflammatory cytokines, and atherosclerotic lipids in the blood. Just like I've talked about previously, how fat is an endocrine tissue and so is muscle. Eat a little bit less, and later on it says 30% less really is all you need. I guess for most people, you want to be burning more than you're taking in, but eat a little bit less, and you're going to find some great results from that. And so this part talks about how synapses are strengthened by daily energy restriction in rats. And here's something interesting. So you can be sleep deprived but not exercise. And in that situation, you're going to have less long-term potentiation of the synapses. You're going to have less strong synapses. However, if you're sleep deprived and you exercise, which of course does take a little bit of willpower, it's going to maintain, it's not going to be affected. The long-term potentiation, the synapse strength in your brain is not going to be affected. Very interesting. It also says that neurogenesis, wheel running stimulates neurogenesis in the hippocampus of adult rodents. And that's a process where stem cells cease dividing and differentiate into neurons. The newly generated neurons then grow axons and dendrites, form synapses with existing neurons, and become part of the functional neuronal circuit. So you can create new cells in the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, through exercise and energy restriction too. And ER has also increased neurogenesis by enhancing the survival of newly generated hippocampal neurons. So energy restricted diets and exercise goes together like bread and butter, like butter and jam, like peanut butter and jelly. It's something you want to do. You're going to have an increase in BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, insulin-like growth factor 1, and vascular endothelial cell growth factor, VEGF. When the caloric intake of 50 normal elderly subjects was reduced by 30% for 3 months, the performance on memory tests improved significantly compared to 2 different control groups. So if you have elderly parents, if you have moderately elderly parents, get them to reduce their caloric intake for a bit, just by 30%, and they're going to have a preservation of memory. This is especially valuable in people who may show a little bit of the first signs of cognitive decline, and you want to get on top of that, because having someone with Alzheimer's in the family, it's difficult. My dad has Alzheimer's, and I wish I knew some of the stuff before, because I would have made him incorporate it into his lifestyle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And if you don't eat less and exercise, you lose it too. That's about all. BDNF, IGF-1, VEGF, GDNF, and the substantia nigra. Some other stuff. Just lots of important chemicals responsible for brain health are released when you're eating a calorie-restricted diet and exercising vigorously. That's about all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you watch every new video as it comes out. Check out my website, practicedomination.com, and check out my book, The Playbook for Chiropractic Practice Domination. I got it's like 220 pages just full of a gold mine of information to help you not only succeed in practice, but dominate in practice. That's about all. Thanks for watching. See you next time. So I'm going to be going over all of my old articles, which I didn't do commentaries for as I made them. And this is the first article I believe that I wrote, and it's probably the most important article when it comes to understanding the nature of business. Studies that show how obesity itself chemically can cause disc degeneration. And it does this in two main ways: through atherosclerosis and through inflammatory adipokines secreted by fat itself.